Air 100, we have an officer down. Officer down. Code 3.
Why are openings always the hardest? Why are intros always the hardest? I could use some help. How am I going to start this thing? I've been in this room for far too long. I quit.
Their vision is this: limit your dreams, give up, aim lower, be content with less. If you're a 20-something in America, life has been really tough. You've watched home prices rise 47% since 2020, 47%. Home ownership is now out of reach unless you make over $106,000 a year. Since I last spoke at the Republican convention 4 years ago, I've become a husband and father. In fact, we have 2 under 2. I think I get extra points for that.
Listen, I wanted to make a video about Rainbow Six, about how my dad and I bonded over Tom Clancy novels. I wanted to tell you how much those moments meant to me and how he was a hero, at least to my childish imagination. A real-life John Clark out there dispensing justice without remorse. But recently, my focus has been shifted away from the nostalgic and into the present day. We see a young Ukrainian girl getting stabbed to death on a subway. We see a right-wing thought leader gunned down in the street. We see the National Guard being deployed into our cities and people being grabbed from their home. We see a degradation of morality and constitutional values on both sides of the equation. And we see those preaching tolerance and unity employ violence to silence their opposition. None of these things are tenable. These are the actions of the emotional and the desperate. These little cuts will make a hole that can never be closed again, and we will fall into the hellfire of our paranoia and fear, pointing the finger at the person across from us. People don't want justice. They don't want peace. They want revenge. They want their anger to find closure. They are giddy with demonic pride over the misfortune of their opponent. They wish nothing more than suffering and sorrow to find their doorstep. And what is the plan here? Where does it end? Do we keep poking each other's eyes out until we're too blind to grieve over the smoking cinder we used to call a society? With all due respect, this isn't a fucking game. There are no winners here. You don't just get to hit the reset button and bring somebody's dad back to them. But always remember, suffering is a birthday cake. Everybody gets a piece.
See you at lunch. Thank you, Cookie.
I'm Clancy, one of the best-selling authors of our time. He has virtually created the genre of the techno-thriller. His books have crossed over into film, television, even video games. And the success of films like The Hunt for Red October and Clear and Present Danger have made movie producers awaiting his next book as eagerly as readers. But he remains devoted to the craft of writing. He has spent the last 2 years working on his latest book. It is called Rainbow Six. It picks up with the character of John Clark. I am pleased to have Tom Clancy back at this table. Welcome back.
Well, nice to be back, Charlie.
It's good to have you.
Recently, I met a man from Russia named Dmitry. Among a group of people, the subject of movies came up, and Top Gun Maverick had just come out, so people were saying how much they liked it. Dmitry did not like the movie, and when we asked him why, he boldly claimed, "It's American war propaganda." Now, you can tell him he's rude, but you can't tell him he's wrong. Rainbow Six is, in fact, war propaganda, and more specifically, it is neocon war propaganda, like all of Tom Clancy's works.
You know, John's running a group called Rainbow. It's right. a NATO multinational counterterror team, and that's sort of a job for John.
John is 60?
He's in his middle 50s now, I guess.
Yeah. How is he different from Jack Ryan?
Well, you know, John has always been Ryan's dark side. He's the guy who does things that Ryan would prefer not to do.
Ryan is more academic. He's more action.
Yeah, he's the guy who goes out in the field and gets his hands dirty.
Yeah. What else?
He kills people.
In 1996, Tom Clancy was already a brand, a novelist who transformed military doctrine into best-selling thrillers. Clancy understood 2 things: credibility sells, and realism engages. His readers trusted him to deliver accuracy, even if it was dramatized. His next move was inevitable. Clancy wasn't just some guy that liked the military. He was one of the richest authors alive, with his own think tank, political connections, and a borderline fetish for military tech. His books were graphic in their depictions of firearms, often spending entire paragraphs explaining how they practically worked. He even lived in a mansion in Maryland with his own tank collection in the backyard. Literally. In 1996, Clancy co-founded Red Storm Entertainment in Morrisville, North Carolina. Why North Carolina, you ask? Cheaper than California, less corporate than New York, and close enough to the East Coast defense world that he was plugged into. Yes, kids, Red Storm wasn't just another studio, it was pitched as a multimedia defense contractor of the imagination. A place where novelists, ex-military consultants, and game devs would work side by side. Clancy provided vision and funding. The operational leadership came from Doug Littlejohns, a retired Royal Navy captain. Under his command, Red Storm blended civilian programmers with ex-military consultants, building a studio that resembled a hybrid between a software company and a military installation. At the same time that Red Storm was forming, Clancy was writing a new novel. The book centered on an international counterterrorism unit, codename Rainbow. The development of the book and the game ran in parallel. Each informed the other. The novel released in 1998. The game released the same day. They were two halves of the same project. One narrative, one simulation.
The idea of setting up the plot for these, because of the way you tie so many, you lay something going here and something out here and something out here, and it's all going to connect, and where does that come from?
I really don't know, but as long as it stays, I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
The late 1990s shooter market was defined by speed and excess. Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, Quake. They rewarded reflexes and aggression. Health was replenished by medkits. Weapons defied physics. Enemies absorbed damage until they collapsed. Rainbow Six rejected all of that. The developers took a calculated risk and assumed the intelligence and patience of their player base would rise to the level of the game, rather than starting with the assumption that it would be too hard for them to figure out. The design philosophy was brutal, unfair, and uncompromising. One bullet kills. Terrorists do not wait in the open. They conceal themselves. They retreat. They act unpredictably. Missions are not body counts. They are objectives, hostage extractions, bomb defusals, intelligence recovery. The result was tension. Players learned to move deliberately, to clear corners methodically, to value silence over speed. Those who did not adapt did not succeed.
I've asked you this before. I mean, tell me who your heroes are.
Oh, God, there's lots of them. We live in a society that's awash with heroes. Physicians, guys who battle with life and death issues every day. I do a lot of stuff with the faculty at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and I'm talking world-class intellects, and they battle with death on a daily basis. They're heroes. Cops, firemen. Firemen. What's a fireman do? He runs into a burning building to save people he doesn't even know. That's heroic. A cop answering a silent alarm. That's heroic. We live in a society where there's lots of people who do their work every day, and for the most part, we don't think about them except when we need them, and then we get their respect. We give them the respect they deserve. Maybe not as much as we ought to. Unfortunately, the media very often ignores them. Last week we had those two cops killed on Capitol Hill, and
the media didn't ignore that. For goodness sakes, I've never seen so much attention for the story.
They sort of made up for all the other cops they ignored. Covering those guys, which is fine. But what about all the city cops in New York or Baltimore or Chicago or St. Louis?
On this point, I beg to differ because it is such a good story, I think, for newspapers. I mean, if you look at the Daily News and the New York, they put those stories on the front page all the time. And the heroism of those people, because it sells newspapers and it's a good story. So they're there all the time.
Well, in a city like New York, St. Louis, Phoenix, Arizona, different places. I'm not sure that they always get the respect they deserve.
Every mission began before deployment, and the player was given full operational control. In the planning interface, the player assigned operators to squads, selected weapons and gear, and plotted routes through the target buildings. Waypoints were marked, breach points were chosen, timing was synchronized. It was a digital version of real-world tactical warfare. Success depended less on reflexes and more on preparation and movement. When executed, squads would follow orders with precision, watching a synchronized entry unfold, seeing multiple teams converge on a hostage room in unison. It delivered satisfaction not through chaos but through precision. This planning system became the defining innovation of Rainbow Six.
Terrorism in the 21st century is an international industry. Money and expertise flow freely through the global computer nets, and every type of weapon imaginable is available on the black market of the Third World. It has become harder and harder for the security forces of individual nations to combat this threat to the safety of their people. What's needed is an organization with the resources and the authority to fight terrorism wherever it flourishes. It would be composed of the best and brightest counter-terrorism experts from every country, and armed with state-of-the-art weapons and equipment. It would operate in absolute secrecy, its existence known only to the most senior government officials. It would attack swiftly and silently, cutting off the head of the Viper before it had a chance to strike. Such an organization already exists. Its code name is Rainbow.
Now, the plot of Rainbow Six is simple, but terrifying. A group of radical environmentalists posing as humanitarians build an army. They hide behind charity, behind science, and behind the language of progress. Their stated goal is to save the planet. Their real goal is to erase humanity. The game's villain, John Breitling, bankrolls a front organization of eco-zealots who plan to unleash a genetically engineered virus at the Sydney Olympics, wiping out most of the global population. They imagine a new Eden, managed by them, of course, controlled by them, of course, free of the cancer of human beings. And the only people standing in their way is Rainbow, a multinational counterterrorism task force designed to fight fanatics of every stripe. And before you dismiss this as neocon machinations, Clancy didn't invent this kind of madness out of whole cloth, but he definitely understood it had always been there. Rainbow Six's eco-terrorists weren't fantasy, they were synthesis. They were the spiritual descendants of the Baader-Meinhof group in Germany, the Red Brigades in Italy, and the Weather Underground in the United States. Left-wing revolutionaries who claimed to speak for the oppressed, who claimed that they were fighting imperialism or capitalism or environmental destruction or whatever, but who quickly discovered that their struggle always ended with a car bomb outside of a bank, or a man shot in the neck, or a subway full of civilians lying in pools of blood.
A short history of left-wing violence.
The Red Brigades, Exhibit 1, Italy, 1970s. They told themselves that they were vanguard revolutionaries, the sharp end of Marxist-Leninist resistance against NATO, against Western consumerism, and what did they do? They kidnapped Aldo Moro, Italy's former prime minister, and executed him like an animal after 55 days of captivity. Or the Baader-Meinhof gang, also called the Red Army faction. They wanted to topple the West German government, punish fascists, and dismantle capitalism. How did they do it? By assassinating bankers, bombing U.S. military bases, and hijacking planes. Exhibit C, the Weather Underground in America, followed the same pattern. Young radicals from wealthy families convinced that the United States was irredeemably evil. They planted bombs at the Capitol, at the Pentagon, at police stations. They talked of solidarity, of liberation, but their solidarity was with violence. Their liberation was in smoke and rubble. These were not one-offs. These were not aberrations. They were the natural conclusion of radical leftist idealism when it becomes untethered from morality. And in the present day, we see Antifa cells across Western cities using the language of anti-fascism as a blank check for violence. They assault journalists, smash businesses, torch courthouses. They tell themselves that they are stopping tyranny, but tyranny isn't stopped by Molotov cocktails, it's fueled by them. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Rainbow Six wasn't a prophecy, it was just an observation. Clancy was saying, look around you. This is who these people are. This is who they've always been, and this is who they're going to be in the future. From the Baader-Meinhof's gang's gunfire to Breitling's fictional virus, the through line is the same. Ideology becomes justification, justification becomes violence, and violence becomes destiny.
A good friend of mine was a government prosecutor, and he was tagged with pursuing with the stuff developed from the church committee hearings. And this friend of mine, before he was an attorney with the Justice Department, he was an agent with the FBI. And he told me once that he prostrated himself to God every night saying, please, God, don't let this go forward. I don't want the world to know how inept
these guys
the government was at trying. It couldn't find one guy. They couldn't find one shooter to take Castro down. Not one competent shooter. The whole government could not find the one guy.
Red Storm Entertainment continued to develop Tom Clancy titles, though some of these memories have been lost, like Tears in the Rain. Rainbow Six 2 Rogue Spear is all but unplayable on current systems, unfortunately, and Windows 11 has continued its ultimate destruction of game preservation.
People are trained as snipers. Why aren't they that good as a shooter? That they
well, there's more to
access
it than that.
is one thing, but being a shooter is not a problem. Is
Okay,
it?
first of all, you have to identify the target. You have to know where the target's going to be on a day-to-day basis. Then you have to get your shooter close to that point, and he has to be set up and ready to take the shot at a precise point in time
With an exit strategy.
Oh yeah, and he probably wants to get out and get home to the wife and kids. First of all, the fundamental problem is gathering the information.
In what I call the darkest day of man, Ubisoft acquired Red Storm Entertainment, getting full rights to the Tom Clancy name. The games began to take a more action-oriented pace, although games like Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2 are absolute gems of their day. But again, those lobbies have been struck down, and without some heavy third-party intervention, it's impossible to play them as intended. Stop killing games, indeed. But instead of the Rainbow Six that we loved, we get Rainbow Six Siege. And listen, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. If you like Siege, bless you. Go with God. But you've got to understand that every minute that monstrosity draws breath is another minute that I will never get the thing that I loved and supported since I was 8 years old. I don't get Ding Chavez in 4K remastered with updated visuals with modern mechanics. I don't get to play Vegas with the boys. We don't get to tactically cooperate, and I don't get to order my troops and make my battle plans. And sure, we got Rainbow Six Far Cry Wildlands Edition, but remember SOCOM? Gone. Flashpoint? Dead. I think that, if anything, Rainbow Six proved that players would embrace difficulty, fragility, and discipline if presented with authenticity. It was less about shooting, more about planning, less about fantasy, more about credibility. But no, instead we get one copy-pasted Ubisoft mess after another until we just mourn the franchise and leave it entirely.
The Mossad is an organization that's been living on its own press clippings for quite a while.
Not as good as it's said to be.
Nobody's as good as they say Mossad was, and Mossad has screwed up many times. They screwed up
certainly recently.
They screwed up in 1973. I mean, you know, when they gave the Israeli government like 4 hours warning that a war was going to start. They're supposed to do a little bit better than 4 hours. 1970, you know, the Yom Kippur War, 1973 was very bad.
They blame the military for that too.
Well, naturally, they didn't take the blame themselves, but they were the principal intelligence gathering agency of the Israeli government, and they didn't gather the intelligence, did they? Look, these are human institutions, and they have human frailties. Now, if the Israelis could have taken out Saddam Hussein, yeah, maybe so, but they didn't, and they have reason to do so.
I think it's a terrible thing to lose a friend, but it's worse to then see everything that friend represented be twisted into a Call of Duty clone. But you know what? For the first time in my life, I'm starting to think maybe that's okay. I had my time with the real Rainbow Six, and maybe the younger generations will never understand it. And maybe when I leave this world, what made it so great will be forgotten as well. There was never a disclosure on the side of the CD case in the 90s that said guaranteed 7th installment when you're 40. But maybe things shouldn't be judged by how they end, but how they were at their best. The smile they brought to your face every day, or the impact that they had in your life. Nothing lasts forever, not jobs, relationships, life, or Rainbow Six. We are never guaranteed the next installment, and maybe that's an invitation to enjoy the ones you have while you still can.
Alpha, go!